Okay, good morning. Our second video this morning is going to deal specifically with one element of the topic proposal and final project. And it'll actually touch on a number of different ones as well in order to get that to it. It's important to understand that the different elements I'm trying to include in all of this, they don't stand alone, right? So research leads us into counter argument, leads us into thesis, leads us into critical observations. Close reading begins everything, right? When we read the book, so all these things they become entangled as we go forward, and in a good way. So while I'm going to spend most of this video trying to talk to you about what counter argument is, it's going to end up talking about a number of different things. And then after that, if this one's done, I'll bring up the syllabus and I'll go through point by point some of the other elements that have been included to make sure that we're getting all of our content covered. But I want to stress to you again that because I'm not in the classroom with you, I don't know where you feel lost inside of the texts. So if you need more content on Ritvo or on the final project or on close reading, please let me know either in an email or that's it. Don't call me. Send me an email, I guess, and we'll find a space for that. So I want to talk about counter argument today. And so counter argument, the first thing I want to let you know, if you look at the syllabus, it says counter argument, the negation micro. And what I mean by that is we're going to look at something small that we can argue against in a larger document. So the best thing to remember with a counter argument is you're not always, in fact, very rarely do you try to flip somebody's entire argument, right? Just to say like they're wrong. That's not really the goal here. Sometimes we can do that, but often we can't. Mainly in our field, in English, pardon me, excuse me. Sorry about that. In English, it's hard to do that because there really aren't any hard lines we can make. Now, there are some people who might just be wrong, right? Misread a word or something, but typically it's about intuitive logic and how that works. So we're not trying to flip somebody's whole argument upside down. We are trying to find little moments in there where we can have a space for our own discussion. And this is really nice, actually, because it can lead us into a thesis statement sometimes. Right? So a small counter argument can say, actually, I don't think that's true. I think this is true. And now I'm making an argument, right? And I'm going to give you an example of that one. I'm going to do that by showing you this here. This is a review of Max Ritvo's collection. This is from a place called Meridian. Meridian is out of Virginia, I believe. I can know that by going to the home space here. This is what we call a referee journal. In other words, what it means is that when you submit material here, whether it's poetry, fiction, nonfiction, book reviews, essays, it goes through a list of editors to make sure that your content is, first of all, factual and it makes sense, but it's up to par. So it has to be refereed for it before it gets published. And that's an important element when we think about annotated bibliography, quality sources. What I mean by that is we're looking for stuff that's been refereed and it gives us information that we can discuss. If we don't have that, we have like blog posts that basically mean that I can post anything that I want and there's absolutely no reason to think that I have to have it fact checked. This has been fact checked. And that's what we want. We want to have factual information, not just people spouting off their opinions and as if they were factual. So that's discussing the annotated bibliography. I very simply just typed into Google, book review, Max Ritvo for Reincarnations, and I was able to get to here pretty quickly. So that's great. That's what I want to do. I have a review here, book review, an excellent, actually not an excellent source for an annotated bib. It's a very good source for an annotated bib. And the reason it's not excellent is that it's so on the nose, right? It's telling you exactly what one person thinks about the book, that it can be a little bit narrow, right? An excellent source allows us to talk about any number of things. And not necessarily tied to the book, but it's like an idea that we can attach to the book. But book review is a little bit more narrow, and it forces us to just discuss the collection. And one of the things that can happen is you can begin to repeat somebody else's ideas if you only use book reviews. So you want to make sure that you're going outside of that one. Now, a book review can be really helpful because it might lend us into some research spaces that we didn't really think about beforehand. And I'll show you a couple of examples of that as we go forward. The first thing I want you to see here is that it's relatively new, 2017, because it's a new book. So that makes sense. So I'm not going to have to worry about that. It's pretty short, really. There's not a whole lot of information in here. There's a lot of information, not a lot of words, and that's great, right? It's a short source, easy to annotate, easy to get a summary of them. But again, sometimes we want a little bit longer, so we have more flexibility. So in this text, our author here of the review is discussing it, and you're going to notice some of the language that the author uses: singular and extraordinary, welcomed into a world. We get some content like direct addresses to loved ones, so telling me what we're trying to deal with this one. Notice that it's a gift of a book. They're gorgeous and moving and stranger than you could have imagined. So there's a lot in here that tells us about the author's understanding of the book. And I'm not going to argue really with the author's evaluative judgment of the book. It's not going to do me any good. I mean, I can't really disprove somebody thinking that something is interesting. That's not what I'm trying to do here. One thing that I can do, though, is I keep finding in this particular text the way that he uses, reincarnation in here into an afterlife. So this gives me a place that I might be able to do some outside research, because I can go look up what this is, right, outside of the book itself, and then apply that information to the book. That's an excellent way to use this review to jump me into a new research element. Also, of course, afterlife. So, this is an important element as well. Another element that gets brought up in here that it takes only just a moment to recognize is this, and this is his bio, in which you may have found in your homework from last night. He was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma at the age of 16. It's a pediatric cancer, and then he would eventually succumb to it in 2016, 25, a month before his book came out. A truly tragic story in many ways. And so can I research Ewing sarcoma? Of course I can. Is that going to help me understand the book? I don't know. Maybe. And it might be a good idea. If I can make it attached to it, then that's what I want to do. So what I'm trying to show you again, right? A lot of stuff can jump out of one source. Find one source and I can get 5 more sources out of them. And so let your work kind of do the material for you. It's like jogging downhill. Let gravity carry you down there. I don't know, I'm using jogging metaphors. Here's what I like about this one. So the collection often poses its own theories of the afterlife without relying on religion or myth, but rather playfulness, youthful exuberance, and possibility, even in the face of the great unknown. Okay, so if I was going to do a counter argument here, I'm going to use this line here to use as a counter argument. And I'm not going to say the person's wrong. I'm going to say that the book itself, instead of without relying on religion or myth, I'm going to say my counter argument is going to be, while I agree that the book does utilize playfulness, youthful exuberance, and possibility, I do believe that the book is creating its own myth, right? In and of itself, it creates a myth. Now, I've negated something small inside of this particular discussion, but now I've created for myself an argument. Now, I have to back this up. So I'm saying that, actually, I disagree with you. It is a myth. It does rely on myth. In fact, it is itself its own myth, and it's the myth of blank, right? The myth of Max Richthofen, or whatever, the myth of life. And now I have a thesis, I have a critical observation, and I can turn that into a critical question for my topic proposal, which is, how is this book a myth? How does he mythologize his own life? And now I can do research on what a good myth does. Now I can look at how mythology works. I can look at Immanuel Kant. I can look at the archetypes. There's so many things I can do with this one because of this one line inside of this text that I thought, that's an interesting claim. How can I go backwards and argue against it? So a small little moment inside of that one allows me to have a counter argument, a micro counter argument. And that's basically what we have to do. So if you notice in this one, I did one Google search and I got to a excellent source, or a really good source for an annotated bibliography. I was able to find 1 to 4, depending how you want to approach it, different sources that it mentions that I can follow up on, which is super helpful for my research. And I've also given myself a space for a counter argument that's actually going to lead into me having a whole new thesis for this collection, just by looking closely at one relatively short source. So the main thing to think about right now is that research, and what a research paper is my friend and professor, George Singleton, he uses BIC pens. This is not a BIC pen, but BIC, B-I-C, button chair. That's how you do research. You sit down and you just do it. You look for information, you read it, you read the main text, right? You read For Me, Incarnations. You think about what it's trying to say. Don't try to just pull everything like pulling teeth out of the book. Go into the other sources, see what other people are saying, find ways to have a conversation with them, and that's what will lead you into more information. So takeaways from this, I hope, number one, you do not have to write a research paper. Number two, you do have to write a final project that's going to combine a number of different the component elements of a research paper. And that will include a topic proposal that will have a counter argument in it. It will also make sure that you have an annotated bibliography that is going to show me what kind of research that you've actually conducted. And you'll close read probably a few small sections from a number of poems inside of the text to prove that your argument does have validity. So different documents, right, all coming together inside of one journal entry and covering a number of different things. So a lot of information to think about. I know if you need me to follow up on any of this, there's more information to come with this, and I'm happy to do that. But let me know, and I can start working toward that individually. So send me emails, let me know. I hope you're having a good morning, and good luck with everything.